Hello, I'm Candy, the founder of Right Hearted Weddings, and this is our weekly one-stop shop podcast about wedding planning, cultural traditions, relationship, and wellness advice, all in 10 minutes or less. Now, the first 3 episodes, I went like 30 seconds over, but I feel very confident today that this one will be within 10 minutes. So let's get right to it. This week in wedding news, we are talking about whether it's worth it to live stream or have your wedding on Zoom. And I would give a resounding yes to this, and I know that I'm not the only one. I recently read a USA Today article from someone that had attended a Zoom wedding, and this was their thoughts on it. At first, I felt silly, but once it began, once the officiant spoke about love, family, and perseverance, once the couple made vows and shared a kiss, it didn't matter if I wasn't there with them. It only mattered that they were happy and I was happy for them. And I have to say, I recently attended my friend's wedding via Zoom back in May. They were based in New York. They were planning a much larger event. They had people flying in from all over, and everyone tuned in via Zoom. Even their officiant was via Zoom because that was in May when they were on total lockdown. And it was so beautiful. And then I also had the opportunity to attend one of our clients for my Seattle-based wedding business. My coordinator there in Seattle was on site, but they had hired Married Livestream to actually live stream it to all of their guests. They did a really small elopement in the park, and I tuned in, and it was also beautiful. I mean, I didn't even know them nearly as well as I knew my friends in New York, and both ceremonies were just so beautiful. You could tell the excitement and the giddiness between the couple, and again, it did not matter that I wasn't physically present with them because all of those emotions came through. So I am a huge supporter of live streaming your wedding. And here are three reasons why. The first is that no matter what, your friends and family want to support you and they want to share in your wedding day. And then number two, if you're using Zoom or live streaming via YouTube or Facebook or hiring a company or videographer, you're providing a really safe and healthy way for your friends and family to do just that, to join and support you. And then number three, it's really pretty cost effective and it's very easy to set up. So I am a huge proponent. I highly recommend it. If you're making changes to your wedding plans and you're still planning to get married, eloping, or having a micro wedding, you want to include a lot of the guests that you originally invited, live stream it. It is a really great option. All right, next up in wedding traditions, trends, and cultural blends. Recently, I had a chance to connect with Cindy from Isle Less Traveled, not planned. She's a great wedding planner. She is Seattle-based. She's on our platform, and she really specializes in LGBTQ weddings. And so she was talking to me about some of the trends that they see within that community. Now, she shared, to kind of preface all of this, that LGBTQ weddings tend to be a little less traditional than straight weddings. And that shows up in just the structure of the day, the entertainment that they have, and even who's paying for the wedding. Now, as a side note, I really want to say that right now, as all couples, whether straight or gay, are having to make changes to their wedding plans due to the pandemic, I think this is a really great teaching moment to recognize that a lot of the struggles that couples that are straight are just now facing, with maybe not having parents there or not having people there to support them, or changing, how they're paying for the wedding, who's paying for the wedding, the aspects of the wedding day that you can and can't do. These are all struggles that the LGBTQ community has been facing since marriage equality passed. Just because it's legal doesn't mean that wedding planning became easy. And there's still a lot of work that we need to do in the industry to be more inclusive and to really support and fully serve the LGBT community. So I think, it's very similar to the Black Lives Matter movement in that I think a lot of white Americans are just now recognizing those struggles. It's the same in the wedding industry. So I think as straight couples and vendors, we should really just use this as a teaching moment. Okay, off of that side note, here are the trends that Cindy shared with me, really about the structure of the day. So the first trend is that a lot of LGBT couples are choosing to actually start the day with a full cocktail hour and then having the wedding ceremony a little bit later. Now, I love a good party, so I think this trend is great. The second is that their toasts are given by their friends, who they often will call their chosen family. And this, again, is a lot of times because they might not have parents or family that support their marriage or support their relationship. And so they oftentimes will change up who's actually giving toasts at the reception. And then the third, and my favorite trend, is actually swapping out the dancing for a drag show. So again, I think all of these are really fun alternatives to the traditions that we typically see at straight weddings. And then again, right now, I think we could all use a little bit of inspiration on how we can change up what a traditional wedding day looks like. And I think we could definitely take a cue from the LGBTQ community. So thanks, Cindy, for sharing those. Next week, I'm also going to be sharing a little bit of advice and information that Cindy has about wedding parties and their attire. So make sure you stay tuned for that next week. All right, in today's heart-centered health, we are going to talk about setting boundaries. Now, first, boundaries are simply just guidelines, limits, agreements that you either create with yourself or with others to help you feel more safe, healthier, or more taken care of. So there are 3 easy steps to setting boundaries. The first is to just tune in and figure out how you're feeling. What areas of your life are causing stress or anxiety or overwhelm or hopelessness? And then once you've kind of pinpointed where you're struggling, you can decide what changes need to happen in those areas to make you feel better. And then number 3 is actually setting that boundary and then actively putting it into place. So I'll share an example of my own that I think is very relatable for many people. I start to feel really overwhelmed and anxious when I consume too much news and information about the pandemic. And I realized a lot of this was happening when I was on Facebook because I wasn't really reading informative articles. I was just seeing a lot of people's opinions about the pandemic. And so the boundary that I had to set with myself was spending less time on Facebook and then actively seeking out better news outlets to stay informed without necessarily feeling overwhelmed by it. And so right now, you might be setting some boundaries with yourself or your partner about working from home. Maybe that's the hours that you work or where you work in the home or how you need to stay focused. Around wedding planning, maybe you also need some boundaries. Do you need a little more support from your family, or do you actually need to not talk about wedding planning? We've had this with a few of our couples with much later fall dates where they've just said, we're not going to make a decision until August. And so we're not going to actively think about it. We're not going to let this, consume too much of our brain power, and we'll revisit it then. And I think that's a really healthy boundary to set if you have, that kind of time to do that. And then also right now with social distancing, if you are having any, site visits with your venue or vendor meetings, maybe if you don't actually feel comfortable meeting in person, even though maybe coffee shops are open or your venue is open, setting that boundary and asking to actually have a meeting over Zoom, whatever is going to make you feel safe and healthy, the people around you should support that. And then finally, just a couple tips. If you are setting boundaries with other people, make sure that you're open and honest and firm about what you need, and then make it a two-way street so that way you can have a conversation and everyone can come to an agreement and feel really part of the solution. So I'm going to link a really great article by Advent Health that's going to go over these tips. But again, right now during a pandemic is a great time to focus on some healthy boundary setting. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. That is all that I have for you today. I really hope I stayed within 10 minutes this time. Please like, subscribe, comment, share this with, people that might need to hear this advice or anybody getting married. If you need some help finding the right vendors for your wedding day, whether big or small, whether you're waiting to get married or you're doing a micro wedding now, we have some awesome vendors on our platform. You can download our free app, Right Hearted Weddings, on the App Store or Google Play. All right, I will see you all next week. Bye.